I'm Kusha Karvandi, and you're listening to Exerscribe Radio, the source for biohacking your health to reach your full potential. I created Exerscribe to provide people with the roadmap to working out. With our new workout app, you can get a custom workout program that adapts your workouts to your body type, goals, sleep quality, stress levels, and personal preferences. With live chat support, our workout app has become so comprehensive some call it a personal trainer in your pocket. Our users are seeing over 90% success rates with their goals because we take the neural approach to fitness, meaning we integrate movements and exercises that recalibrate your brain and body to prime you for rapid strength gains and fat loss. Check out the Exerscribe workout app in the iTunes App Store today. In today's podcast, I interview Guy and Ilan Ferdman from SatoriPrime. Ilan Ferdman is a seasoned entrepreneur and experienced life development coach. Prior to becoming an online marketer and business coach, Ilan was vice president and co-founder of a widely successful commercial real estate bank. He personally managed over $100 million under assets and was considered one of the go-to guys in the industry by his mid-20s. Having left that industry, the older of the two brothers began working on their project, SatoriPrime, and has found his voice and passion for making a difference with online communities all over the world. Ilan enjoys one-on-one training with his students as well as public speaking from stage at various marketing and mindset events. Ilan believes that transforming your life and having fun, play, and ease is not only essential, but a birthright for all people for a sustainable lifestyle. Guy is one of the hardest working people in the online industry. His ability to both create relationships and develop systems has been a breath of fresh air into the online marketing world. His talents lie as a teacher and mentor to hundreds of people all over the world, which has allowed him to take complicated concepts and simplify them so that anyone can follow and understand in both business and in life. His goal is to bridge the gap between life and business so that the next generation of entrepreneurs are free to follow their passion while also fulfilling on their personal financial goals. He craves to make a difference and has been able to train people in and out of business for nearly a decade on how to empower and enrich their lives. Together with his brother Ilan, they make a dynamic and formidable source of energy, education, and experience all over the world. Hey everyone, we're here on Exerscribe Radio with the Ferdman brothers, Guy and Ilan Ferdman. Welcome, guys.
What's up, people?
What's up?
How you doing?
So maybe just to get started, it'd be really cool is to go kind of into your guys' story about how you guys overcame some of the obstacles to start your guys' business.
Damn.
Shoot.
I don't know that we've overcome any of them. I think we're constantly dealing with them.
Overcoming.
The first thing I'll say about that, and this is a conversation we have with a lot of, we work with a lot of startup business owners, is that never ends. Most people think that they're supposed to start a business, not experience overwhelm, not experience frustration, not experience failure. And my personal opinion on that is that's an absolute dream that you're having, that if you think of that's not going to be part of the ride. So I won't say it's over, but some of the obstacles we came over, we were hit really hard, like most people, by the economy. Ilan was a VP of a really successful commercial banking institution, where we lent, and what do we have, $100 million under asset at some point in time?
Yeah.
At that company. And I was manager of that company for a long time and one of the top earners. And when that went away, put us both in really bad financial situations. Ilan had to deal with house foreclosure and the IRS, literally pulling money out of his checking account, a kid on the way. I sold everything I owned. I moved back in with my mom for 18 months. And just long story short, during that time period, at least for me, this was my conversation, we were in that banking world, and anytime you're dealing with finance, I feel like you have the worst of humanity in that, especially when you're the lender. And I remember when I first started that job, and I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, my job's to make loans, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to help people. And then it's like, that's not your job. Your job is not to make loans. Your job is to be the bullshit meter. And I saw that carrying over into my life, because when you're doing that 8 to 10 hours a day, you can't shut that down. So on the other side of our lives, we were doing a lot of personal development and a lot in these coaching programs where we would be coaching hundreds of people at a time, and watching amazing transformation happen, all these incredible things happen. And I was just thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? Here's my calling, and I'm spending my time doing this crap. So at that time, I had to make a choice about what I wanted to do next when it all fell apart. and I knew that I didn't want to build a traditional business. That I didn't want to like shake hands and walk out in the street and tell people what I was capable of. So it just became a really natural extension to get online, get those skills of marketing online in order to communicate to more people what I knew I could share with them and make a difference for. And that was really what sparked the whole idea. I did it for about 6 months. Then Ilan joined up once he got sick of what he was doing. and that's kind of how we formed SatoriPrime. And we're about a little under 3.5 years now on our journey, and becoming slowly, hopefully, a household name.
It's a household name.
It's a household name. We're going to break into the shrimp business any second now.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to talk about that seems to become more of a popular topic right now are things like DMT and ayahuasca. You know, I heard recently that Apple sent their senior executives to Peru to do an ayahuasca trip. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah, I just heard that recently.
Is that why Tim Cook finally came out publicly? Because he did some ayahuasca and he's like,
it might be.
He's like, I'm not living my life's purpose. He's like, it's time to get real.
Yeah, I bet you it is. Yeah,
could be. So what specifically do you want to know about it? Because that is that's a big drop in the water there.
Yeah. What's been your experience with it? You know, I've never done it personally, but I know that you have some experience with it yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. It keeps coming up recently, even more than the business conversation. I know Ilan's dying to do it just so you can actually talk about it from experience. I can tell on his face. This is the second time it's come up in a few days. I mean, my last experience with it was actually last Friday, prior to this call, and I took about a year break. I dipped and dabbled in it quite a bit last year. I mean, my experience with it is like most of these kind of experiences, it's inexplicable. I don't think, even having done it as many times as I have, I still can barely grasp what that experience is like from where we're sitting right now. There's nothing that I could tell anybody, like I could point to an experience that you've had that you can measure this against. And that's the problem with talking about it, is no matter what you say, people are trying to map it onto their own experience, and honestly, you can't. So in the most shortest term, what I could say is it's an experience of complete dissemination of your physical self in third dimensional space, and an experience of what it feels like to be spirit. So Wayne Dyer has this beautiful line, you know, we think that we're humans having a spiritual experience, like we're physical beings having a spiritual experience, when we're really spiritual beings having a human experience. So if you could take away that physicalness, how you get to experience yourself in terms of who you are as a function of the creator, who you are as a function of the whole, your sixth sensory perception abilities that we talk about like it's mythology, and you start realizing that that's not mythology at all, like that's actually built into the mainframe. We all have these incredible abilities to heal each other, empathize, and have telepathy, for lack of a better word, with each other, share information, get information from source. And it's interesting because all the old mystical arts, if you look at like the Vedanta, am I saying that right? Vedantas of like the Eastern philosophies, that's basically like the rules that Indians came up with in the East. If you look at the mythology of even Kabbalah, what those people did was sit around, meditate, and listen to the world. And as if the answers were just in the air, and they grabbed them and created these like rules out of the universe. And I would say that's the experience. It's highly meditative, very balanced, and you deal with both dark and light sides in there. Some shit is really scary, and some stuff is really beautiful, but it's the ultimate human experience. I don't know if there's anything that I've done that could contrast it against.
That's awesome. Is there any way to get to that same experience or state without using ayahuasca? I mean, is there a way to like meditate into that state or no?
I imagine so. It's probably the cheat sheet for a 30 to 40 year meditation practice on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
But I could tell you, like in my last experience, and when I say experience, guys, I don't mean like I had a thought or I imagined something. I mean, like you live it, like you live a dream. And what happens is you can relive either moments of your past or actually see things into your future. Or, it depends on what your experience is going to be like. Everyone's different. But it's so real, and your perspective is so high, meaning in terms of your sense of spirituality and how vast you can see. That like if I had to, if I relive a situation with Ilan and my parents, let's say, like a fond memory that I have, your memories are set up in a specific way. They have a certain color, they have a certain size, they might even have music playing in the background that's either sad or happy. You can go back into those experiences, literally relive them and see them from a higher place, and you can actually feel your brain rewiring so that when you leave the experience, how you now view that moment, how you now view those people is not the way that it happened and how you perceived it then. It's the way that you perceived it under ayahuasca. And that even seems more real than the way that it actually happened. So it's like you can't even relate to people the same way. So it can actually cause incredible transformation inside of your relationships. It's just some of the really profound things that showed up. I could talk about it endlessly in terms of what I've gotten from it over the last year.
It seems like for a lot of people have self-limiting beliefs, and they have this mask that blocks them from success, and it's kind of like an internal thing that they have to deal with. And it seems like things like ayahuasca, meditation, and whatnot help kind of break that down. Would you say that's the case? Would you say that it really helps kind of find that kind of inner issue and break it down and deal with it?
There's actually
go ahead, sorry.
There's a cool video I saw that actually described. So they put people under fMRI machines, which basically allow them to see what's actually occurring in the brain as they put them through some sort of experience. And so they put people on ayahuasca through these machines. And what pretty much happens in the brain is, I like the example they used because it was really simple. It's like if you were a kid and you were whatever, let's say like 7, 10 years old, and you got bit by a dog, okay? What happens in the brain at that moment is a neuronal pattern gets created in the brain that your brain now has associated with dog, okay? Now, at the time that it's created, we know like our brain are now, they're finding out are actually have neuroplasticity, so we can alter them. That's not fixed. But what happens in the brain at first, it's like, this just happened once, so it's kind of in there. No big deal, right? The problem is, though, that now every time you see a dog, what happens in the brain, it's programmed to help you survive. So what happens in the brain, every time you see a dog, your brain is firing through the same exact neuronal pattern. The neuronal pattern of dogs are dangerous, dogs bite, right? So imagine having this go over years and years and years and years. What actually happens at the neuronal level is a calcium, actually like a protein, builds up and literally locks that thing in place. So now you go through life, and it doesn't matter. It could be this cute little dog. What doesn't matter? You're hearing death. This thing is going to jump out and bite me. So what they found in ayahuasca, what it actually does is it bypasses that neuronal pattern in that specific area of life. So whatever you're dealing with, you pretty much bypass the normal processes. And then when you come out, you've actually, like in physical, real science world, have reprogrammed your brain. So if you had, say, like a fear of failure, let's bring that example to business. If you failed in a business, every business you go into now, that's going to be your repetitive cycle, whether you want to or not, unless you're actually going through, processes to break that down. But you can go to ayahuasca, deal with that failure while, on this journey, come out, and you will now have a completely new pattern that your brain will fire through. That failure conversation will never stop you again.
Yeah.
Because now the thing that's firing is completely reset. So at a very fundamental, there's a reason they call it medicine. Like at a very fundamental level, it is actually reprogramming your brain.
Yeah. And you could feel it. I mean, you could absolutely feel it. I mean, you said, how do you get there? These type of, I guess, call them psychedelics, these type of medicines give you the experience of dying without actually dying. Like the realizations that you would have on your deathbed that would be so profound. And you'd be sitting there going, wow, I wasted all this time because I didn't see that. I mean, that could happen now. So just to give you like an example, in my last experience, my experience was that I lived about 1,500 years. So like imagine living like 1,500 years worth of life experience in about 6 hours, and then like popping back into your body and being able to draw on that experience as you live your life right now. It's just a completely different way of living.
Wow, that's crazy. Where do you guys learn all this stuff? I mean, this is pretty in depth. I mean, how did you guys learn all this, through experience, or?
It finds us. Seriously, I mean, I truly believe, like, when you like, I stopped believing that something is happening to me, and I started believing that something is happening for me. Profound change in I think the way that people view life. Mostly people view life as it's like coming at them instead of like moving with them, like in conjunction with them. So I think when it's the most critical thing, and what I'm starting to believe is, if we want to heal this planet, what it's going to look like is everyone seeking their purpose. You know, it's like, imagine like a cell in the body who's not performing the function it's supposed to function because someone told it, like, you're not that kind of cell, you're this kind of cell, right? And then you have disease in the body. So we're seeing disease or dis-ease on the planet because we have a structure that doesn't allow people to fulfill their purpose. They have to fulfill what they think is their purpose, which is just traditional bullshit, like 9 to 5, menial, stupid things. And maybe at some level that's necessary, but that's not what 80% of people are probably supposed to be doing. So I think ultimately when you are more aligned with your purpose, you find that you're not going against the grain so much. You're kind of like moving with the flow of life a lot more. And it's like the right things just seem to find you. Like I was, we were in personal development for so long. I heard so many different types of things that you can do during those years. And for whatever reason, ayahuasca just never came across my desk. Like never even heard about it, never knew about it. And then like last year, I moved to California, and I could tell you when I did ayahuasca the first time, for me, it was like, okay, now I know why I moved to California. Yeah. Like it was so I could find that medicine, so I could have that experience to help me get to whatever my, quote unquote, my next level is on my path. It just really jump started that for me.
I think there's a great cliche though, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
I think that's very true. I also think when you put yourself, especially as an entrepreneur, I think when you put yourself in a situation where performance matters, much like an athlete, or fitness, right? So like when you're in that world and you are on that path to mastery, it is imperative for you to push yourself to be the best version of you that you can be. And once you get into that game, I think you kind of start losing that tunnel vision that people have. Because, for me, I'm not just interested in the way my mind works. I'm interested in the way my body works. My language comes out, how I appear in front of people, how I have the ability to persuade people to do things. All of these things come into play. And now I'm like a sponge trying to find as many ways as I possibly can to get that information. Mm-hmm. I'm also surrounding myself with really, really high level people who, by the nature of the way we operate, are actually sharing what's working for them in their lives in all sorts of businesses. So like, we spoke about before the call about nootropics and stuff. And I found out about it because I was in a room with 25 entrepreneurs in all different walks of life, 7, 8, 9-figure earners. And out of a room of 25, I'd say that about 18 to 20 of them were taking nootropics. And I was like, first time I'm hearing about it. Like, there's got to be something to this. Mm-hmm. And then I start digging, right? Like I'm asking them all this stuff. And then next thing you know, now I have this whole world in front of me that I never knew existed. So it's I think of a combination of all those things.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had a friend of mine sent me a YouTube link yesterday to this like Jim Carrey speech. It was like a commencement speech or something. And one of the things he said was something about how like I guess his father wanted to be a comedian just like he became. But I think because of social pressures and probably because of limiting beliefs, he went the safe route and became an accountant. And apparently he got laid off, lost his job, and the family kind of struggled and they had to make ends meet, whatever. And so he basically gave him some wisdom along the lines of like, if you're going to fail at what you don't want to do, you might as well take the chance and do what you do want to do. What do you think it is? Is it just fear that keeps people from doing what they truly want to do?
That was actually in Jim Carrey's commencement speech.
Yeah, that was the video. That was the video that I watched.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
I did a podcast on it, actually.
Absolutely amazing video. as much as I loved him before, after watching that, I was like, you are the freaking man. Yeah, I think, he says a great line in there, which I'm going to paraphrase and somewhat murder, unfortunately. But he said something like, he used a much better word than I'm going to use, but security, I think he used the word security is the mother of, I don't know, basically what he was trying to say is like his dad was playing it safe and trying to be secure and somehow missed on living the life that he actually could have lived, like the bigger life that he wanted for himself. And I think we justify a lot of shit in our lives that keep us playing small. And I think the biggest myth is, or one of the biggest myths is just that, like having to play it safe, having to be secure. Well, what the fuck is secure, right? The guy today, like you give your life to a company, you can work there like I think worked there for 12 years, got kicked off his ass, kicked on the street, and that was it. Like they ended up living in a car for the next 2-3 years. So, okay, is that secure? And if he would have pursued something that he's actually passionate about, I guarantee that he would have been way better off. Because when you pursue something that you're really passionate about, it doesn't turn off. There's no like, oh, this didn't work, so I'm going to run the other way. It's like, oh, this didn't work, so what's next? Oh, this didn't work, so what's next? Oh, this didn't work, so what's next? It's a lifetime pursuit of mastery. When you're on that path, you absolutely cannot fail. You just cannot. Like people that I know that are extremely passionate, like I know you're extremely passionate about fitness, right? So it's like if your club that you worked at was like, fuck off, Kusha, we don't need you anymore, you'd be like, okay, great. And you'd find something bigger and better and whatever to do. There's no like, oh, like if people told Guy and I, we just had this pretty crazy experience where we almost lost a relationship that we were working with this company for the last 2 years. If that relationship ended, would I have been sad and like really hurt? Absolutely. But that wouldn't have stopped anything in my pursuit of what I'm up to. Right. Where most people stop is like, they're so singularly focused, whether they're an accountant or whether they're an attorney or that's the only thing they know how to do. The world is going exponentially in a million directions. You can no longer be a one-trick pony and expect to succeed going forward. You have to broaden your horizons. I know, for example, like artists, and I never even thought of this. Great book, by the way, Robert Greene, Mastery. He's talking about how artists today, you can't just learn this like one art skill and hope to be an artist. Yeah. Not only do they have to learn what their other contemporaries are doing and people in the past, they need to look at physics, science, politics, all these different facets. Otherwise, they're not relevant today. So it's like, what artist signs up and is like, yeah, I'd really like to learn about science or politics, or they don't, in their brain, they don't give a shit, but like they have to. Marketing, I mean, look, okay, to be a Facebook marketer, right? Like that's kind of how we're known, Facebook marketers. The amount of shit that we need to learn and know that makes Facebook marketing successful, it's like, if we just knew that, we wouldn't be in business.
Yeah, we have to be life students, not Facebook marketing students.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so true.
And I'm sure for you too, Kusha, it's the same thing. I mean, your health and fitness, but your approach is extremely holistic, and it has to be more than just the way your body looks. It's about how you feel, about your understanding about life, your perspective, right? Like all that stuff plays into each other, and even how the body performs and is going to end up looking is all about your perspective. At the end of the day, it all plays into each other. It's like not one is singular or separate from the other. People have this like everything is mutually exclusive thing, like your life and your business and your relationships can somehow live separately. Mm-hmm. And these things need to really coexist and work hand in hand. And if you're not working on one, you're really not working on the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because it seems like, a long time ago, thousands of years ago, whatever, it seems like they had some kind of ancient wisdom that taught them certain things. Like, for example, with nutrition, it's like, how do they learn these really nuanced, intricate techniques to soak their grains or to, you know, to prepare meats a certain way? Like, how did they learn that? I mean, is that just through experience? Was that some, like, was it aliens? I mean, how did they? How do you
Oh,
think
don't get guys started.
Aliens for sure. Aliens for sure. I don't know, man. I mean, either the wisdom was passed down. I'm a very big proponent. I'm sorry for anybody who's religious and this turns them off. It's not to turn you off. It's just, again, just a different way of looking at something. I don't know that it's the truth. My personal gut instinct is that we don't know who we are. We don't know anything about our history, that pretty much everything we know about our history has been fabricated in order to serve whatever purpose is currently on the planet right now. You know, you need to feed a story, right, that's going to give you a specific result. Stories lead to action, bottom line. So if there's anything that humans have always been storytellers, that's the way we've passed on information, we've passed on our genes, our understanding, our genealogy, everything's been passed on through story. It just seems to me like 6,000 years ago the story changed. And suddenly all these things that were really innate and intuitive for us for probably millions of years became like hidden information. So we look at ancient wisdom and we're like, oh my God, look at what these people knew. That for them was like, for us, like crossing the street. It was just so obvious. These things that seem so difficult for us. And today, we are trying to create a world around technology with things that in the past they didn't need technology to do. Because the information was available to them, they knew how to tap into it, they knew how to communicate across thousands of miles. We have evidence to show that all the ancient civilizations were talking to each other, which is why you see similarities between all of them. They were using the same symbology, they had the same mythology. How can two cultures who were living on opposite sides of the world in a world that apparently didn't know one another have the same exact things going on different sides of the world? So there's incredible evidence to show this stuff, that, you know, pyramids are like 50,000 years old, that there was no pharaohs in there, they were never erected as tombs, they're advanced technological machines and all these different things. I won't get into it. But yeah, I think there's a whole theory right now that the DNA has been designed. I mean, whether you believe in God or an alien or energy, I don't give a fuck what you want to believe in, but that it's on 10,000 year loops, and that there's like a forgetting button that's built in, and the DNA starts waking up again. And what we're experiencing right now, this evolution that we all seem to be experiencing, is like the DNA like coming back online, essentially, so we can like be re-exposed to these powers that we innately have. And that's kind of the frustration for a lot of us. It's like I keep looking at the world and I say, we're evolving. Like the software keeps getting updated, but the old archetypes, the way the political arena is set up, the way the countries are set up, boundaries, all these type of things, it's like the hardware is not being updated. So the software can't play with the hardware. Right? And it's like, okay, well, if that's what's going on, we're all evolving, but nothing is changing, then we need to look at the old archetypes and say, you know what, this doesn't work anymore. Like, that's not update shit if we want this game. And we keep trying to play this new game on a bedrock of, you know, a game that just won't allow it. So I think that's where we need to go to work. And I really do think that's this point. A lot of that is people finding their power, people finding their passion, people understanding their leadership abilities, their abilities to heal one another, and to just feel empathy for one another, and really get into each other's lives and understand that these are humans and we're all one of the same being, just having 7 billion different possibilities played out.
Maybe that's why Apple went to do ayahuasca, so that they can update the hardware, you know?
If Apple's good at doing anything, it's starting social trends.
Yeah. It's really interesting because I feel like, you know, having a certain level of consciousness about something changes everything fundamentally. And an example of that is it was recently, probably a few months ago, that I really learned the neuroscience behind pain and what pain really is in the body. I used to think that, like, you know, if I had shoulder pain, that there was something structurally or there was some kind of tissue damage in the shoulder itself. And the reality is that the pain is really in the brain, and that pain is actually just an action signal, and that it's not correlated to the amount of tissue damage that may or may not be there. And so when I actually figured that out, when I became conscious that any kind of pain that I would ever have, it changed the way that I would look at it, and then the pain would fundamentally be less too. I noticed that the pain would dissipate faster, just the fact that I was more conscious of what it was and how it worked.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Well, it's interesting. Two things I want to say. One, you asked before about, you know, what we kind of got on that whole conversation of like having to be more rounded, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in fitness, and here you are studying neuroscience. Like, why? right? Because for you, you're about mastering everything to do with the human body and sharing that with others, right? So for you now, it's like neuroscience, which before, if I told you 5 years ago that you'd be studying neuroscience, you'd be like, the fuck are you talking about? What is it even? Like, why would I study, right? But for you now, it becomes interesting. Just for me, also from the psychology standpoint of sales, neuroscience is fascinating.
Yeah.
Every decision we ever make is based on what happens in the brain. So now there's this whole thing about neuromarketing. But to take what you were talking about neuroscience even a step further, there's a doctor that did these studies on how people that lost limbs, like imagine you didn't have an arm, and they would feel pain in that arm that wasn't there. Like they called it phantom limbs. And the doctor actually figured out how to reprogram their brain so that they would stop feeling pain in their arm. What he would do is, it's really crazy. And it's so simple, but it's just genius. So he would have them sit in this like chair, and he would have them stick their real arm into a box. And there was a mirror. So basically what they were seeing is the mirror version of the live arm and the other side. So it seemed like there were two arms there. And he would have them do all these things like, you know, move this, feel that, et cetera, and take them through a process. And within one session, people said that their pain went away.
Wow.
Because what happens in the brain before a limb gets amputated, there's some, like you said, some sort of scar tissue happens where it's like there's a shock to the system, and they're like, whatever the pain was right before the limb got amputated, that gets stored in the brain, not the actual body part. So even though the body part wasn't there, leg, arm, whatever, the brain still sent signals like there was pain there. And it would drive them nuts. They thought they were going insane. He solved like an issue. I mean, how he even got onto that thing is just beyond me, but like, it's nothing that we would ever conceive of. And this guy just solved that whole situation, and it's all because of neuroscience.
It's crazy too. I mean, if you think about the brain actually fills in most of the gaps to create our reality. Like with language, for example, our audience is listening right now, and because the fact that there's context in their brain of what they learned about English, their brain hears gaps. It hears pauses between my words. But in reality, there's actually no pauses between the words I'm saying. Their mind is inserting that on its own, so it's not even real. And with vision, your visual cortex, your retina, is actually two-dimensional. But your brain and the context of what it knows about humans and the world makes that image 3D. And so it changes everything. It's crazy. Like, if somebody was like giving a speech and they walk, behind the podium, your eyes can't tell necessarily if they're being impaled by the podium, but because of what we know about the context of the world and humans, we know that they're actually just stepping behind it. So our brain inserts that 3D information.
I think that was I was listening. Was that even Robert Greene's? Like one of the things that evolved with us, that separated us from everybody, from all the other animals, was our ability to imagine our perspective through the eyes of a different being. So like we could insert ourselves and project what that person might be thinking, and then that would allow us to kind of like predict future events, which is what led us to be able to survive really well. Other animals can't do that at all. So they say like the two biggest evolutionary things besides like opposable digits, which allowed us to like walk upright and use our hands in the way that animals can, is the fact that our eyes came forward and became binocular vision. Like when eyes are on the side of the head for animals, they see panoramic view, which means they have a really expansive view, but they're not detail oriented. Like they can't see what's in front of them. But like chimpanzees had to evolve that way so they could find like forage, right, for like nuts and berries and stuff, and like see what's close up, and also get grips on limbs. You have to be very mobile. Like an animal who's got that on the sides of his head can't do that. So look at like animals who have like owls, cats, very, very like good mobile creatures who are, need to use that part of themselves. And then the brain, like being able to project that ability to see from a different point of view is apparently what just gave us the evolutionary advantage over every other being on the planet.
No, it's so true. It's really interesting. If you look at the neocortex, the newer part of the brain, we know that that's evolved because we're smarter. But a lot of people don't think about the unconscious mind and how much that has evolved. And it's evolved because of deception. If you look at apes will have the hair on their chest stand up when they sense a threat, and it's to deceive their opponent, to make them look bigger. humans are masters of deception, and my theory is actually not so much that we have to be so good at implicitly being able to sniff out someone else's bullshit, but we have to also be good at sniffing out our own bullshit. I think that we deceive ourselves, and that's what I don't think we've evolved enough yet to really be able to sense how much we deceive ourselves every day, and how much that we're in denial about certain things with our own self-limiting beliefs.
Totally agree. I would say 95% of our day is probably lived inside of a figment of our imagination. It's very few moments, I would say moments in life where you are related to really what's real.
It's true.
Very few. Generally, it's almost nearly 99%, I think this is neuroscience, 99% of your life is complete automation, which is why, for me, ever since I've been out here, I've actually gotten into a lot more of the subconscious arts, and I think ayahuasca does that too. It just gives you that direct access to the subconscious, because it's because when people think about taking medicine or these kind of, call it drugs if you want to call it that, I think it's a disservice because of the connotation. People think of it as it's like activating parts of the brain. It's not. It's actually shutting down parts of the brain and really activating just this one part. So it's interesting because the world is perceived through that one part of the brain, while everything else, just all that noise goes away. So you get access to something that you normally don't have access to. But subconscious training. Right now, I'm going to go do the process, and I'm not too bad. That's going to happen. But in the middle of December, I want to do like a 5-course immersion. Had this doing for like 40 years, and that's what it's all to the just subconscious. It's also why they don't let you take it more than once. Like you have to it's a one-time shot. So, and I did another class called Hey, all programs you get into studying how you reprogram the subconscious mind, because you're gonna autoplay that sequence anyway all day long, right? Your eyes are gonna see what they see through that place. You're gonna. When you get home and driving and you're like, fuck, I wasn't even there last 15 minutes. How did I show up at home? It just autoplays, basically. So if you can get at least somewhere to being at the helm of the subconscious mind, so you can say, or at least let me program it in. Mm-hmm. So when it plays out in a way that's, purposeful for me. I think that's really effective to be fine.
Guy and I always related to kind of like the Matrix, like being unplugged, right? The first time you become aware that there's a voice in your head and it's not you, that's a mind fuck. You're like, wait, what? This thing that I've been listening to the whole time that's been telling me that I'm fat or stupid or smart or sexy or this girl hated whatever is not me. Like once that happens and you kind of get it, you're like, oh shit. That leads down this path of realizing that what's happening up there is this kind of machine that never stops. And it becomes then your job to kind of figure out a way to live with that machine. You can't ever shut it off. It never turns off. But there's a lot of different practices, whether it's meditating every day, certain courses and seminars that Guy and I have taken that just give you this kind of like different perspective or distinction to look at life that allows you to deal with shit that normally stops people dead in their tracks. So like we're actually in the process of launching a program called Mindfluence. And it's all about that. It's like how, Guy used the example of autopilot. It's like, how many times have you driven your car, whether home or to work or somewhere, and you like get into you stop at your driveway and you're like, where the fuck have I been for the last 20 minutes? Like, it's like someone else was driving the car. You were so not there that you have that moment where you're like, thank God I got home. Like, I don't remember the last 20 minutes. You are that checked out. That just happens. That's just like the way most people live their lives. 99% of the time, maybe it's not to that extreme, but we are living life that way. And I think the whole journey is shortening the time that you're on autopilot and catching it faster so that you can be more present and live the life that you want, that you say, this is my life, more often. And I think that's the journey that, Guy, I've been doing this for, God, what is it now, 12, 13 years?
Almost 13 years for me. Yeah, in March it'll be 13 years. So there's just a truck outside my window.
Yeah. So, and still, even with that, are we getting better? Absolutely. I mean, it's just like any practice. You go to the gym, you know, like you go to the gym 13 years in a row, you're going to be fit. Like, I don't give a shit. I don't care what you do in the gym. In 13 years, you're going to have some sort of level of fitness. But is it ever going to get to the point where we're like, yes, we got it. We mastered it. That's it. We're golden. I just don't see that happening.
That's awesome. What kind of things are you guys doing with Dr. Beck? I know that you guys have been working with him for a little while.
Yeah, so it was really cool. So I had Dr. Beck on our podcast, and we brought him on because he's working with a good buddy of ours, who you know, also Larry, and he's really freaking smart. Like, he's one of these super nerdy guys about health, about vitamins, about supplements, about all this stuff. And really kind of like, he's entertaining to speak to. But he does this blood lab where he looks at your blood work. And Kusha, it's kind of similar to what you said. You know, most people, if your shoulder hurts, they'll treat the shoulder. Right? Because this is this is what's hurting. So what's the cause of it? It's here. Let's deal with the effect. Everything is here. What I loved about Dr. Beck, I'm getting an echo, by the way. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, there it is. What I love about Dr. Beck, so he does this crazy ass like blood lab thing. And then when you go to a doctor and they're like, okay, your iron's low or your calcium's low, what do they tell you?
Yeah, they tell you got to take a iron supplement or a calcium supplement.
Exactly. It's crazy. And it's like, so that's what I'm talking about. That's like, here's the problem, deal with this. Okay? What he does is he looks at, and I love his description, he says, look, your body's like an 8-cylinder engine. Just because it's functioning, I'm like, I'm in good health, I'm fit, I don't get tired, like I'm really healthy. But I've also been taking, nootropics and drinking bulletproof coffee and doing all this shit. Like, I kind of wanted to know what it's doing to my body as a whole. So he's explaining to me, okay, if the 4 cylinders of the engine don't work properly, right? Cylinders in the engine go like 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4. So if one bank of 4 isn't working properly, that doesn't mean that the next bank isn't working. It will work, but it's just not going to give you optimal horsepower, because what was supposed to be delivered from here is no longer being delivered here. So for example, for me, when I did the blood work, I was deficient in certain Bs. So like B6, B12, things like that. Most people would be like, go get a supplement. But he's like, well, okay, let's look, right? So now we know, here's a symptom. Let's see if we can trace some other symptom. And through basically like looking at 4, 5, 6 different things, he understood why I'm now B6 deficient. Not like, hey, go take more B6. Because when you do that, pretty much all you're saying to your body is like, here's a shit more of it. You spin the body, and the fan now starts spinning really fast to process this, but all you're doing is hurting this other side of the body. So a body needs to function in balance. When it functions in balance, everything is in balance. All your supplementation, all the aminos, everything is there. And he works through diet more than anything. So yes, a little bit of supplementation, but mostly diet. And I got to tell you, just from, I started working with him maybe about 2.5 months ago, just with a little few tweaks in my diet, I've felt amazing. I've never looked better, and it's never been easier. So like, for a guy, not to sound like an asshole, but for a guy, like the lower ab is the hardest thing. Right? It's like the one that everyone's like, how do I get that? How do I get that? So I was taking stuff like, CLA and dandelion root and shit like that you read online. Well, for my physiology, the way that my body actually works, CLA in my body was actually giving me, not bloating, inflammation. Right? And so all these things that I was trying to do to help me, and talking to him literally and like changing my diet, now I'm the leanest I've ever been. And it's actually the easiest. I'm eating more food today than I ate for the last probably year. And I'm the skinniest or leanest, I should say, I've ever been. I'm actually the heaviest weight-wise.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, he takes a very algorithmic approach.
Very calculated, very smart. It's not cheap, but Guy has a great line. He says, you're either going to pay for it now or you're going to pay for it later. And I will say that later, you're probably going to pay way more. So my body, my mind are extremely important to me. I mean, it's my life. So I take it seriously. I'm, blessed to be in a position where I can even make that choice, I guess. Because like, if you asked me a year and a half ago to pay what I did to get this blood work and like work with him and pay as much as I am for vitamins, I'd be like, you're fucking out of your mind. But, I think for anyone that's healthy and health conscious and is, even buying supplements on a regular basis, whether it's vitamins or protein or whatever, if you calculate the amount of money that you spend on that, if you kind of took a step back and was like, well, is what I'm putting in my body really the best thing for my body? Wouldn't you rather know that and then go actually buy what your body really wants and needs versus what you've read online is good or your friend told you is good or blah, blah, blah? They're all basing it on nothing. No one's looked under their hood. Like if someone tells me, your diet is crap or what you're taking is crap or blah, 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 like I don't care now because I'm basing it off of my body, my physiology, my blood, not anybody else what they're telling me is great. And that's a huge difference.
That's great. No, it's about that individualization, and I think that's the wave of the future.
Agree more.
Absolutely. Let me know if you're getting an echo, by the way. Just keep myself muted when I'm not talking.
Yeah.
So it seems like we covered a lot of topics today. A lot of really, really good stuff. But, one thing I always like to do on every episode is kind of streamline it down to one thing. What's that one thing you would tell the audience to do today to just improve their lifestyle overall?
You going first?
Yeah, I'm just giving it a thought because one thing is never easy. I got another truck by here in a second too. It's like it's trash pickup day. The trucks are in full force.
Do you want a minute? I have one.
One thing I would tell them: action is probably the most critical part. To learn how to take consistent action, learn to become what we call like an unstoppable human being, and that doesn't mean that you're the most fearless person in the world. In fact, the people that take the most action, probably the ones that have the most fear. They've just learned to deal with it in a manner and style that works. So people think about like things like courage, and most people think about courage as the absence of fear. I would say that courage is not the absence of fear. It's just the ability to act in the face of it. Ilan and I have learned that the magic of life exists on the opposite side of things that you're afraid of. So when people wonder, like living a magical life, living one where you feel powerful, self-expressed, free, I would challenge you and assert that you go look at any time you've overcome something that was fearful to you and how that made you feel in your mind, body, and your spirit. And notice that your intuition is always guiding you towards the things that you're afraid of. And then what you do is you listen to your mind instead of listening to your body, and you logic your way out of it. And you give a lot of really good reasons as to why not to do something. But if you would just take that action, you would find that there's really nothing scary there except for what you preconceive to be scary. And you'll also have an experience of being extremely powerful. The more you build that muscle and start using fear as a guide versus something to get away from, you'll find that everything you want in life is available to you.
Awesome.
Good answer. Good answer.
Nice.
Is it on the board? Is it on the board?
It's the number one answer. Go after what you're afraid of.
I would say the biggest difference maker for me has been becoming obsessed with learning. Like learn to learn. Again, just going back to what I said before, surrounding myself with really high level people. What I realize more than anything else the biggest difference between really successful people and those that are even mediocrely successful is the amount of information that people take in, the amount they read, the amount of articles they read, the amount of seminars they attend. Just get obsessed with learning in whatever you do. That's why I said before, if you're passionate, you're going to succeed, because when you're passionate, you're obsessive about learning in that field. And then that leads to something else. Like Kusha mentioned before, he was studying neuroscience. Like, that's only fueled by your passion for health. And if you can get obsessed with learning, whether it's reading, listening to podcasts, listening to books, whatever it is, do that. In a year from now, you will be a completely different human being.
No, I agree. I feel like I've been an eternal student, and it's paid off.
Absolutely.
It's why you are as wise as young as you are.
Yeah, student mind. And also, I think like any other muscle, that the brain is the ultimate muscle, right? It's I think latest research shows that your brain actually consumes between 60 and 70% of the caloric intake of your body. Mm-hmm. Something like crazy
amount.
It's
crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. It's basically where all the energy is going. But just like any other muscle, when you're not exercising it, there's atrophy in different parts of the brain. And I think that's oftentimes why people experience things like overwhelm and frustration. It's like going to the gym after you haven't been there for 30 years and picking up a 10-pound weight. It's going to feel really heavy. That's going to cause stress on the body. There's going to be frustration because of it. I don't think the mind is all that different. You're just experiencing the stress of atrophy and of a muscle that hasn't been worked in so long. And I think that's why things like memory, creativity, as we get older, seem to kind of wither and die. They're not withering and dying. You just stopped. When we're in school, it's like we're looking at so many different things. Like your brain is active every day. It's being challenged every day. Growth and resistance against yourself. So many people want that not to be there. It's just pivotal. It's pivotal to you just seeing what you're supposed to be doing. You have to go through the struggle. The struggle is everything in life. Like when we work with new entrepreneurs, I can tell you the biggest curse is early success.
Yes.
Early success is the worst thing that could happen to somebody. And most people are like, what are you talking about? Like instant results, that's amazing. No, it isn't. It's the kiss of death, actually, because you think you know something. And the biggest mistake in life, I think, is to think that you know something. Yep. The more you get to, I don't know shit, the more wise people seem to be.
Yep.
No, I agree 100%. I agree. I think that's a good lesson.
Absolutely.
So where can the audience learn more about you guys?
Broski?
They can't. We're mysterious.
Yeah. We're offline. We're on a farm right now.
Yeah.
I have little hamsters under my desk who just spin a wheel so I can get on Skype.
So two places they can find us is either SatoriPrime.com. There's tons of free content about mindset, starting your business, marketing your business, sales, leadership, anything you want is there, and it's all free. You can just sign up for to become part of it, and we'll update you as new stuff comes out. And then the other thing is we have our performance enhancing podcast, which you can find just by searching performance enhancing podcast, either on iTunes or Stitcher, or even if you go to our Satori Prime page, you'll see a little podcast.
And there's some free 6 subliminal reprogramming MP3s on there for those of you that want to start working on reprogramming your subconscious mind.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I'm gonna.
I always forget to tell people about that.
Yep.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for being on the show today, and hopefully we'll get together soon.
All right, brother.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it.
All
Thanks,
right.
buddy.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. If you haven't already, get your custom workout program by downloading the Exerscribe app from the iTunes App Store today.